it and some of the remarks from Neil Woods.
Well, I mean, your introduction was completely biased and actually fantastically, fundamentally and profoundly ignorant.
It was meant to be. It's opinion, Peter.
Well, it wasn't meant to be ignorant, I'm sure. But
it was meant to be biased.
So many people, you are a victim of billionaire propaganda of one of the most successful lobbies that has ever taken place for what will be, if it succeeds, one of the biggest businesses in the world, the stupefaction of millions for money and the ruining of many, many thousands of lives, probably hundreds of thousands of lives, possibly millions as a result. And you will then be among those responsible for those ruined lives.
Trust you to be colourful.
There is increasing correlation.
Yes, tell us then. Well,
hang on a minute. You've had an uninterrupted 7 minutes of diatribe about this. I've spoken for about 20 seconds and you've begun to interrupt me.
I was about to ask you a question.
Am I have enough time to say anything, or are you going to have a completely and totally biased programme? Without any
Peter, can I ask you a question about what? Can I ask you a question about?
Stop interrupting me, then. Let me finish what I'm saying before. No, interrupting in the middle of a sentence, for goodness' sake, after 7 minutes of diatribe. Control yourself.
Peter.
Control yourself, or there's no point in my being on this programme.
No, I understand that, but I want to ask you a question.
Let me say what I'm trying to say then, instead of interrupting me every breath I take.
All right, okay. I tell you what.
Are you ready for that now?
I tell you what. Finish that, and then let me ask you a question. Go for it.
Begun, let alone finish. Let me make my point.
Go for it. Go for it.
The point is quite simply this. Apart from the fact that marijuana or cannabis, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, is a drug increasingly correlated with irreversible severe mental illness, just at the time when it is becoming fashionable to say it should be made legal. The other point is this, that we have done, since 1971 in this country, the biggest decriminalization experiment in drugs in any major country in the world. What happened under the 1971 Misuse of Drugs Act was that possession was progressively decriminalized to the point now where the police barely bother to arrest or charge people for possession of cannabis particularly, but of the other drugs as well. So possession, which creates the market, possession which allows millions of selfish kids all over the Western world to pour their dollars, euros, and pounds and yen. They're less so in Japan because there they have serious drug laws, to pour all this money into the drug trade. The source of all these billions, the real Mr. Big in the drug trade, is all these selfish Western kids buying the drugs, about whom we do nothing. And we concentrate entirely, and your guest has been concentrating entirely on one end of the trade and only one end, leaving the other end untouched. To do nothing about demand and concentrate entirely on supply is a complete waste of time and has been so.
Peter, do we have your permission now to have a response from Neil there? We need to have a response, though, don't we, sir?
A former head of the Scotland Yard Flying Squad, in 1994, John O'Connor said, cannabis is a decriminalised drug in this country. Now, to say that we're in some way criminalising, persecuting, prohibiting this drug is absurd. For decades in this country, we have allowed it to be sold and consumed pretty much openly, and we only persecute or prosecute some of the suppliers. It's been a failure because it's only one half of the job, and it cannot conceivably succeed. To make out of that an argument for legalizing a drug against which evidence of serious danger is now piling up in every conceivable area of research is so irresponsible it takes my breath away. And this is the fruit of an enormously powerful billionaire campaign. And it really is a billionaire campaign.
Okay, so you're clearly very, Peter.
People hope to profit from.
You're very angry about this, I can see, but allow me to ask you a question. Peter Hitchens. Peter Hitchens, please let's be slightly less accusatory and have a conversation about this. I'm not helping anything. I'm opining on a subject. I have no power, I can assure you. You probably have a louder voice as a columnist on this subject who's written a book about it than I do. I may have a voice, but not on drugs. So I'm opining on a subject. So allow me to ask you a question, please, right? So the question I have is, there are health risks, of course, to all forms of intoxicants. In your opinion, how do you distinguish the health risks that are related to alcohol and the social costs of alcohol consumption versus marijuana? And I just want your opinion on this. I'm not making any accusation, Peter. So in your view, why is alcohol exempt?
They're totally different drugs, but here's a simple point which you need to absorb. Once a drug is legalized and in general widespread use, you cannot ban it. If alcohol were being introduced now, as marijuana is, into our society, nobody sane would be pursuing its legalization. If we knew what alcohol did before it was legalized, we would have stopped it being legalized. It is a catastrophe for our society. But it is the argument of a moron to suggest that having one or two dangerous legal poisons in society justifies having a third. And how can that possibly make logical
Peter,
sense?
are you on any substances this morning? You seem incredibly angry.
I'm actually on the source of extreme anger at the way in which this debate is conducted, totally one-sided.
How's it one-sided? I've just asked you one question.
In getting a word in edgeways to make the serious point which needs to be made, that people need to be protected from this very dangerous drug. And you have just used your responsible position in broadcasting to propagandize for misery. The ruined lives. If you could see the ruin which comes on the families of people who take this drug and actually witness it, you would simply not say the things that you've been saying this afternoon. It's unbelievable to hear it being said on a major broadcasting channel such as yours.
So I should instead censor my thoughts and just allow you to speak?
No, you should attempt to find out something about the subject about which you plainly know very little indeed. That would be a good start.
Thank you. Can I ask you some more questions? Because I genuinely am trying to learn from you, but it doesn't help if you're insulting me like this, Peter.
Well, I've got to get through somehow.
Well, is it? Okay.
This is people have to know that what you're saying is irresponsible and wrong.
Good, right, and moronic and all the other things you said. However, let's ask you another question. So the pragmatic argument you've used to say that because alcohol is already out there, we can't remove it, I agree with, right? So,
okay.
And you're saying that to quote you, only a moron would take the approach that we can't now just take something away that it's there because it's consumed by almost, a majority, at least in this country.
Only a moron would use that as an argument for introducing another legal poison into our society.
Right. So I suspect that pragmatic argument you've just given would lead you to lead you to the conclusion that if weed were to become as popular, and I suspect it has been, that surely pragmatically it makes sense now to regulate the thing.
No, I mean, first of all, it hasn't become anything like as popular and is nothing like as widespread in use as alcohol. And as soon as it is legalized, it will become so, because it will then be promoted, it will be sold on the internet, it will be sold in high street shops, it will be advertised, it will be everywhere, and it will be almost impossible to stop. Very powerful vested interests, very big businesses will move in, and as indeed the tobacco industry, which is an example of the regulation of which you speak, will cynically, and we're told constantly, what about all these gangsters? Sure, there are gangsters selling drugs, but are gangsters in any way seriously worse than cynical businessmen who actually have access to...
Oh, come on, Peter. Cynical businessmen make money. They don't kidnap people. They don't kill people. You know what? That's an absurd thing you've just said. And now it's my turn to tell you that you've said something moronic. Businessmen may be nasty. They may be immoral. They don't kidnap people. They don't slay people. They don't shoot people. They don't torture people. Yes, gangsters are worse than businessmen. You're sounding like a communist, Peter Hitchens. You're sounding like a communist. No, it's my turn to speak. No, Peter Hitchens. It's my turn to speak. And then we're going, no, hold on a minute. You cannot say that businessmen are worse than gangsters. That's like I had a caller on the other day who tried to convince me that politicians are worse than ISIS. All this hyperbole is absolutely ridiculous. Portugal has had an experience with a decriminalization of drugs, and crime went down. Yes, some businessmen may have made profit, but crime went down. Some US states have had an experience with a decriminalization of marijuana, and they've found that the regulation has led to wonderful benefits for their states. The economy has gone up, and they've raised millions, thousands in tax revenue that they can put towards the health service. They can put towards treating some of that addiction you seem to be so concerned about, yet only are interested in swearing and insulting people. So, Peter Hitchens, thank you for joining me on my show, but I must say that we have to have a reasonable conversation about this, and not just hurl abuse at people. And some of the remarks from